of time actually starting the stream, but it's got the delay, and then it includes the delay. It doesn't just go live when you think you're going live. It goes live when the video catches up to it. But who cares? Because we have other stuff to do tonight. On that note, hello there, everyone. Welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast that is covering the Hand of Thrawn Duology instead of the Book of Boba Fett tonight. Next week, we will be doing our Chapter 6 and 7 coverage for Book of Boba Fett. The finale is nearly upon us. I'm sure we'll get some Book of Boba Fett takes in here tonight. I am Corey, as always, joined by my co-host with the mo-host, EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, EckhartsLadder? Yeah, like I was shocked when Boba recruited Batman to fight for Mos Espa, but pretty crazy. Yeah, so if you are ever leaving a review, oh, you were muted. Thank God. If you are ever leaving a I can't make fun of Charlie anymore, can I? How are you doing, Justin, this time?
I'm good. Are we restarting the whole podcast? Let's do a fresh.
We should, because I'm dying apparently.
Let's restart the audio as well. Sorry, everybody. Look behind the curtain.
Okay. Now, are we gonna make the same jokes? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. You ready to record?
Yeah. I can.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1.
Now everyone gets to really see how that sausage gets made.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of sausage, though, hello everyone. Welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast that is talking about the Hand of Thrawn Duology instead of the Book of Boba Fett tonight.
What an astute observation from the young lad Corey loses over there.
Yeah, well, you know me. I like to make points about things. I am your host, Corey, as Eck just
Dude, what
so
is
helpfully
going
pointed
on
out.
with your voice?
I don't know. I think there's something in my throat that just won't leave. But how are you doing, Eck? You're my co-host. You really just interrupted me. Can we just get through one intro, please?
We'll try. So, guys, just as a brief warning before we get really into the nuts and bolts and I don't know what else is in this book. Nuts, bolts, and
sardonic smiles,
scrungles, and mouths twisting into a grin. There's a chance that I accidentally drop a Book of Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett spoiler today. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, just a brief warning. It's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about the 6th and 7th episode, i.e. the last episode in the finale next week. So that will be our dedicated discussion, but just in case. And if you're watching on YouTube, I also would just be extra vigilant.
Yeah, so we will almost certainly drop a few spoilers. We're going to try not to do too much of it, but at this point, you've probably already watched it anyways. So we've also got a few questions in emails about the episode that just aired. We will be getting to that next week as well.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to tonight's topic of Specter of the Past, which is this little book by Timothy Zahn, have you launched any Star Wars based word games this week, Justin?
I did. So I completely and just without regret stole Wordle and made a Star Wars version. So if you want to find that, you can go to starwordle.com. It's a nice mix of EU and canon books. I think yesterday's, for example, was Kubaz, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I have a strategy with regular Wordle where I'll just try to get through as many letters in the first 3 words as possible. But Star Wars uses so many Z's, V's, and K's that it's like fun. It's a complete different ball game, and
that's why it's fun.
I only got sheave because I guessed sheet at one point. Like, what the hell has S, H, and E?
Yeah, there was also the fact that for the first 3 days, there was a little mistake where it wouldn't show. You know how so for those who don't know, Wordle is basically this game where there's it's a 5-letter word. You put 5 letters in, and it tells you if the letters don't exist in the word, they're grayed out. If they exist but they're in a different spot, so like if the word is she, for example, and you put the first letter in your guess as H, it'll come up as yellow because it's in the actual word, but you've got it in the wrong spot. And then if it's green, you know that you've got the letter and you got the right spot. So usually by 6 guesses, it's pretty easy in regular Wordle to get it. But we had a slight malfunction the first 3 days where it wasn't displaying all of those correctly. So like there were a couple words that were a little extra difficult.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's only one per day, so even if
Yeah.
it starts eating your time, it's it's not going to take over your life entirely. It's a nice forced balance.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
because
noticed
the
a lot of
force.
people will do it like in the morning,
Yeah.
and like because a lot of people will tag me like in the results or whatever, and I'll see that they've done like 6 different Wordles, like Harry Potter Wordle, regular one. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of
yeah.
fun. So that's starwordle.com,
Mm-hmm.
starwordle.com. People want to
Mm-hmm.
check that out while listening to some specters of the past being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to Timothy Zahn, like we spoke about in the last episode. We are doing
I was
these
gonna
2 books
say
in
yeah,
Survivor's Quest as we make our way to
episode
episode
100.
100, which will be on Vector Prime, and we get into
Mm.
the NJO. All 19 books of those are going to take throughout. We're probably going
It'll
to finish
take a
by the end of
year.
2024. Uh,
It
yeah,
will. It will probably be near the end of this year by the time we're done it all.
yeah. I guess we'd be starting it in March, so that'd
Maybe
probably
even
work out.
next year. Yeah, it might even be early next year.
There might be
Because
some where we end up doing like 2 weeks in a row of an actual novel or something, because
Mhm.
some are relatively small. Like I can see us doing that for Michael Stackpole's.
Mhm. Okay, so before we get started, there's something I want to talk to you about and get your take on
Uh-oh.
this. Um, so this is a discussion I got in with some people online about BBY. Did you see
Okay.
Did you see this argument I had with somebody?
I didn't. No.
How long would you assume that, like, if I said this event took place in one BBY, when would you assume it is?
I would assume it happened. Uh, so 0 BBY is the year leading up to the Battle of Yavin.
Mm-hmm.
1 BBY is a year to a year, 11 months, and
Mm-hmm.
39 or 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
or
What about
however.
0 ABY?
That is the first year after Yavin.
Right. So the argument that I got in with people is they were trying to say that the Battle of Yavin takes place. They're basically saying that the distance between one ABY and one BBY is 1 year, when that makes
No.
no sense.
Have
Yeah.
they are they unfamiliar with this thing we have in real life called dates?
Well, that's exactly what I said. And there's one piece of evidence that they've basically used to and it's kind of a mind fuck the more you think about it as well, because it like throws off the timing of like everything, um and yeah, so it's like it was somebody posted just a general reminder that the Battle of Yavin takes place in April or March of 0 BBY or 0 ABY, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That makes no sense. And they're like, actually, it does make sense. And I was like, actually, no, it doesn't.
Well, year
Because
zero technically doesn't exist for real life, so
for real life, but that's because our year 0 was year 1. So it's
yeah,
kind of different. There is still a year 1 point.
yeah,
Um, it's just like in Star Wars, because BBY originally comes from before Star Wars and after Star Wars.
yeah.
So it's just like the hoops these people were jumping through to yeah, this was after Burio. I argued about this for like an hour on Twitter. Um, it was like it was I. It's just it makes no sense.
But don't the books like don't they do it that way? Like the
Well, the
where is it?
basic argument is that 0 BBY and 0 ABY are the same, and that they like switch over like 6 months or like
Oh.
4 months. So 0 ABY, so 0 BBY is 4 months long, and then ABY is 8 months long. You know what I mean?
Don't buy it.
Yeah, no, me neither. It makes no sense. There's you would never ever do something like that, especially because BBY and ABY is primarily an out of universe term for dating things. And the argument, like one of the main arguments, was that like, but it took place halfway through this other.
I
Uh,
guess. But,
but
like,
the
that's
thing is,
not the
epochs
starting and
don't
ending point.
necessarily
Yeah.
exactly. Epochs wouldn't be based on the same point. So I got in this long argument about it. I just want to take your take because,
Yeah. 'Cause,
yeah.
like, for this, the dividing line for the year in the first place is the event that's being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like in real life. So that was an example I shouldn't have used, where CE and BCE are they're not using the event that they're theoretically based on as the dividing line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a spirited debate. But what was I going to say? And so I think I found some pretty clever proof as well, because I found a few dates that were, because you can like a lot some of like the early stuff has dates both in BBY and in like other calendar systems.
Yeah.
So I found a date that was 9 months or 10 months after, or actually it might have even been 11 months after the Battle of Yavin. Um, so in their argument, it should have flipped over to 1 ABY, but was still 0 ABY. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how did this work if we just translate all dates to being in relation to the Great Resynchronization? Because then we know if
Well,
there's that extra year in there.
yeah. So it's not really, you can't really tell because you don't usually get months, and I think purposefully most of the months are kind of it's weird because they work with that cutoff point. So, but yeah, it's a very, it was like a mind bender, and like I was going to sleep like trying to like work out like somebody like 6 months older, younger, like it was weird. But yeah, just wanted to bring that up before we get into the book.
Yeah. So there is the possibility that Star Wars is inconsistent, in this, which
Yeah,
I think that we all need to take a good hard look and accept that this could sometimes happen.
yeah, I don't know if I believe that.
No, you're right. That's stupid.
Hmm.
Uh, anyways, Specter of the Past. I was kind of dreading this because for some reason I remembered them being a kind of a slog, and I think we talked about it last week with the Com K and Com J stuff, and that's mostly to
Hmm.
come in Vision of the Future. But I really loved this pretty much the entire way through. So
Hmm.
I did go and look at my copy of Vision of the Future to see just how long it was afterwards, and it is 700 pages. So
Oof, really? Shit.
yeah, so it's
Yikes.
quite a hefty one there.
How long is this audiobook? Fucking Jesus. They should have made this into 3 books.
Well, they already had a Thrawn trilogy, so they had to just pop it together. Because what, it's
I guess.
700 and 400 pages. So for some reason I had thought Spectre was 300 pages last week. So I
26
guess,
hour audiobook, bruh.
well, what are you gonna do? You gotta read it. You signed up for this.
Struggle. I gotta struggle, I guess.
Look, it's better that this is 700 pages and it's not like the Crystal Star was 700 pages or something.
Yeah, and I've got 2 weeks to read it.
Yeah. Like, we know going in, it's 700 pages. That's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
We go through, we turn to page 376. He looked back at N2Ni. We're going to stay and fight. That's all there's to it. We're going to stay and fight, much like N2Ni and whoever N2Ni was talking to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about this book. So you liked it. I liked it as well. For me, what I kept thinking while I was reading this is like this was written how the Thrawn Ascendancy book should have been written.
Okay.
Um, where if you think about it, honestly, there's not a lot that happens in a way, but
Yeah.
it never feels boring. And one example that I thought of that like this book handles so much better, and we'll get to the general premise and stuff in a second. But like one thing this book handles so much better is that scene where they come out of, you know, when they're the Star Destroyer's traveling to Bothawi and it's cloaked and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
releasing their So basically, I kept thinking while reading that scene, if this were in a Thrawn Ascendancy book, this would have been 2 chapters.
Yeah,
Like about the
that would have
starfighters
been
going out, getting reading.
half of the book instead of actually when they're.
Yeah. So it covers a lot of ground while still like there's big scenes where there's not a lot of action happening, but it never gets really super boring. And that I thought was contrasted with the Throne Ascendancy books, which are kind of similar in a way that there's a lot of scheming and like a lot of just kind of talking. But I thought those kind of got weighed down sometimes. So I thought that was kind of an interesting comparison there.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It does do a lot more actually just having the characters do things rather than having the characters explain for 2 pages
Mm-hmm.
what's been done elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see that. Uh, I
Let's talk about
think
the actual. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
I do think Vision of the Future goes a bit more in the opposite direction, though,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm remembering it
Yeah,
correctly.
there's like a lot. There's quite a bit more action in that book, from
Well,
what I remember as well.
I mean more in the there's a few more instances of characters just explaining things after the fact or giving a history lesson. Like I think that happens a bit with the Devists.
Mm-hmm.
I think it happens a fair bit with like everyone's plots becoming unraveled. Like the Empire of the Hand stuff is entirely just Stent and Park and Fell standing
Mm-hmm.
there just monologuing
Mm-hmm.
individually, trialoguing at Mara for a few hours, but
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
vlogging.
Fair enough. Yeah. We'll see. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this book though. So the general premise is that we are
On
what
this
19.
podcast.
Sorry, did I say podcast? I meant to say the book.
No, you said let's
Um,
talk about this book, but I've never heard of this
on
podcast
this
actually
podcast.
talking
Oh
about a
yeah,
book.
I know. I want to talk about this one. So we're
Okay.
what 19 or are
19
we
ABY, I believe.
19 years after the Battle
Well,
of
no,
Yavin,
hold
or
on,
18
hold
and a
on, hold
half,
on.
perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, like
Yeah,
yeah, let's try to be precise here.
it's fucking ridiculous. Only Star Wars fans could take something that's so clearly like plain English one way. Anyway, I don't want to get mad about this. So 19 years after the Battle of Yavin, the New Republic is in a relative state of peace and dominance. The Empire, which we actually get hard numbers about, is down to I think 1,000 systems. They said a few hundred star destroyers. Their mighty empire has crumbled. Um, Unfortunately, the New Republic is already kind of dealing with some testy citizens. They're kind of realizing that the galaxy is a bit hard to manage when you're not the Empire with the Star Destroyer over every world. Um, and the big kind of flashpoint for the events in these 2 books are the discovery of the fact that the Bothans were involved in this tragedy known as the bombing of Ka Mos, or the destruction of Ka Mos. The planet isn't actually destroyed like with the Death Star, but what happened is the Ka Mosi were this very peaceful species that pretty much everyone was chill with, everyone loved them, and Bothan spies infiltrated the planet, lowered the planetary shield from inside, and the planet was destroyed ruthlessly by the Empire shortly after the Clone Wars. Um, no one knew who was involved until it's discovered in this book that it's Bothans, and that kind of sets off a bunch of proxy wars and a bunch of conflicts where certain species want to help the Bothans, or not help the Bothan, but certain species want to kind of live and let live. Others want the Bothans to pay either with money or with blood for what happened. And making matters more difficult is the fact that no one knows exactly who was involved or which houses were involved. Um, so the New Republic is looking for the Ka Mos document, which they imagine will kind of have all the details. And while this is happening, the Empire, as led by Galad Pelion, is considering surrender. And Pelion actually wants to negotiate a peace treaty with Garam Bel Iblis. But there is also a Moff known as Moff Disra who fully opposes surrender, and he is working with an impersonator known as Flim, and also one of the Emperor's former royal guards known as, what's his name again?
Rodin
Tierce,
Tears.
Grodin Tierce. And they've basically enacted a con where they have the impersonator Flim pretending to be Grand Admiral Thrawn, because the Empire's big thing right now is they've got no one to go behind. Pelion doesn't have the heart, basically, to and I think he's probably right, to lead the Empire in some great war against the Empire. There are some who believe the New Republic's going to just collapse on its own, just under the sheer weight of all the conflict right now. Um, and yeah, that's kind of the main setup.
Yeah, and the New Republic is kind of set up as having really pulled away from direct governance of a lot of the world. It's almost just largely a
Hmm.
defense pact at this point.
Yeah,
They do highlight the Almania crisis with Kueller from New Rebellion,
yeah.
Queller from New Rebellion as
Black
being
Fleet
a
Crisis
big.
gets a bit of a nod too at one point.
Yeah, so Zen brings up all these other events, which is really very unlike him in a lot of other
I
situations
kept thinking that too.
to reference other books in this way. But we do get some background on,
Callista gets
uh,
a drop.
yeah, context on how the New Republic has kind of been accused of overstepping so much and kind of gone too far in the other direction as a result, where they'll maybe intervene if there is something related to mutual defense, but there
Hmm.
are all these planets that are ready to get into armed conflict with each other because they think the New Republic isn't going to step in anymore. So there is
Hmm.
some validity as they're going through the early parts of this to some of the Imperials' views that maybe the New Republic is just going to completely implode.
Hmm.
But Pelion is ultimately saying, like, even if that happens, he kind of
Yeah,
softens on this later on in the book, I think. But his argument with the Moff is like, even if that happens, they'd still have the weight to roll over and crush us while they're killing each other.
yeah,
And we're better off being at peace now. We can pick up the pieces later if we so choose or if we're still alive. But if we just go and get ourselves killed trying to do an offensive right now, we're done.
yeah. And the other argument is too, if the Empire can make peace with the New Republic, it's essentially a legitimate state, and planets and systems are free theoretically to join the Empire. And the other argument is, when people see how chaotic everything is, people are going to be flocking back. And
Yeah.
he's probably not wrong. I believe that's something we see. It's like, I think that's kind of a dynamic that they talk about later on, and maybe like the Fate of the Jedi series. But
Well,
where there's,
ultimately, it is kind of what happens, isn't it? Like the Empire
Mhm.
ends up back in charge. The Galactic Alliance gets really shrunk, and I mean they're part of it initially, but the New Republic falls apart like twice and keeps going,
Yeah,
becoming the Galactic Alliance in exile at least twice. But
yeah, because the New Republic's huge at this point. It's they make it sound like it's nearly Republic sized. And Zod actually gives a lot of hard numbers in this book, which is kind of surprising. He
they're much bigger
says,
numbers than he'd usually give for other
yeah, I think
situations.
it's like the one case where it actually feels like the numbers are kind of correct. They use the old 25,000 Star Destroyer number. The Empire still has, is it 1,000 systems? The New Republic has 1,000 senators. Each senator, I think they say, basically responsible for 100 to 250 systems. So we're getting a real sense of scale here.
Yeah,
Um, which is kind of funny in a book which has all the same people running into each other, Book of
yeah,
Boba Fett style. But
yeah. But yeah, like you have even Shada, who's not even really part of one of their main groups, going from Card's associate around in the New Republic into working for Card. But
hmm, yeah, um, one thing I really liked about this book that I think other authors wouldn't have had the gall to do, and it would have been worse for the book overall, is the fact that they never act like Thrawn is actually back immediately
yeah,
when Thrawn returns. So it's we basically see Thrawn's return through the eyes of Tears, and it's immediately revealed that it's a that it's an imposter.
yeah.
And there are other books which would have, I think, really dragged that on, and readers would have been excited, and I think it would have been a real letdown. But it's literally like the next paragraph in this book, which I really appreciated.
There's almost a bit of a takedown of Thrawn in this. Not not of Thrawn as he was in the Thrawn trilogy, but like kind of the mythology that gets built around him in other media after the fact, like how he gets kind of treated or elevated almost as deity status. And it seems like Zen is kind of playing off that. I mean, he was really damn good. But even in the Thrawn trilogy, it was kind of implied that all the Grand Admirals were meant to be on that similar level until they kind of got fleshed out more on their own, and it was like Thrawn was still just that cut above. But
Hmm.
throughout this, there's this reputation that Thrawn has built up that's almost more dangerous than Thrawn himself is,
Hmm.
where just the idea that he could be around just really it brings together a lot of the Empire. It starts splitting more of the Republic apart, and just like the thought that he might be here or could be out there. And they
Hmm.
even do that with the idea that maybe a clone survived later on,
Hmm.
but the idea that he could be out there was like hugely terrifying to everyone and enough on its own to start splitting people up.
It's one of my favorite parts. It's like he's done nothing. He's dead. He's dead
Yeah,
the entire time, and it's like he just like the rumor is like nearly causing a civil war, which
yeah,
it is very much like the original Thrawn trilogy in a way, where like he would play into kind of people's insecurities
yeah,
or like natural fault lines in a way, and like really exacerbate them. Um, so I thought that was kind of interesting, and Leia even mentions at one point like Thrawn has made allies natural enemies, which is like exactly what he would do if he were
yeah.
actually alive.
Like a big part of the point of the books is just how much everyone is willing to do this to themselves to incite their own divisions and then blame it on someone
Mhm.
else.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of emphasis put in this book on the Szanszij protesters of like, yeah, a lot of these people are being unreasonable about this, but like if you in the New Republic leadership start blaming all of this on
Mhm.
outside incitement, then you're doing a disservice to any attempts you're going to make to actually solve the issue. Which I
Mhm.
do think it is kind of a cheap way to the fact that there is this list of all the people who are actually responsible that they get and that solves the crisis. It does kind of undercut the idea that this is a thing they need to get around to solve, and maybe it'll be highlighted more in that way in Vision of the Future when we get there. But like doing all this to have the one side saying, well, if we need to hold all the Bothans accountable, or we
Mhm.
can't hold the ones that are actually accountable. Do we blame all the Bothans for this thing that they are not perpetuating or have nothing to do with? There's the third side of by protecting the information that there were Bothans involved, the current Bothan leadership has made themselves party to that original crime in
Mhm.
the first place. So the fact that it's not really resolved on those lines, it's instead, well, we just found the list in a library in the Outer Rim or Unknown Regions to know exactly who did it, and then everyone can move on. Like I feel like that kind of cheapens the impact of what is trying to be set up here a bit.
Yeah, I think that the whole Kamos document and even the like event itself is probably the weakest part of this series. Um, like I think just logically, I'm not sure if it makes sense, and like I get that at one point it's being used as like kind of just a proxy. Like a lot of people just want to fight,
Yeah,
and that's kind of like like people just want to have it out and are looking for an excuse. But like I think it is an issue that there's never an indication that the Bothan government sponsored these Bothans or that it was a Bothan mission to help the Empire. It comes off to me more like it's rogue Bothans. Um, and like I just don't like if it were Corellians, for example, I don't think it would be the same thing.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know, like for me that's just a weak point. Like I don't know if that's I think there are more interesting things you could have done. Like I think had it been the fact that like the Bothan like government was cooperating with the Empire, like that would have been a bit more compelling. Now, obviously, Bothan society is not directly comparable to like a human society because Bothans are very like heavily clan based, and you know just generally are very they're just Bothan like, so they're easy to hate already. But I did think that was one weakness. Like at the end, one thing that happens is there's this big riot, um, and there's one faction ends up destroying a Bothan space station to take basically an eye for an eye. Um, and like if you compare that to the initial kind of lowering the shields, like you can see how different that is, where it's one government and its military killing civilians versus essentially rogue actors who happen to be Bothans
Yeah.
taking down the shield generator.
I think the one thing that does kind of address that is the fact that the Bothan clan leadership after the fact, well, it did prompt them to join the rebellion and
Hmm.
really do a lot of good to help the galaxy that way. They did cover up
Hmm.
and withhold the involvement of Bob. Like they had information about this
Yeah.
this calamity that they intentionally withheld. Like if they had come clean when they joined the not even come clean because it wasn't them, but like if they had said at when they joined the rebellion, we have this information on Bothans having been involved in
That's
Kamas,
a good point.
and we're also here now to go and die and steal some Death Star 2 plans. Like I think
Mhm.
ultimately no one probably would have held like
That's
had
a
that
good
as the
point.
same excuse to hold them accountable, even though it is largely just like a reason to start shooting each other. But did
Mhm.
you catch the makeup of the Diamolan defense fleet
Um,
before we get too far
uh,
away from the devolution of New
the
Republic
one they
powers?
send to Bothui,
Well, there, yeah,
don't they? Nebulas and endurances, don't they
yeah.
say?
So the
Yeah.
New Republic military, like in Legends, much like canon, the New Republic does kind of wind
Hmm.
down their military. It's something we saw in a lot of these later
But these
books,
are
like
big
Corellian
boys they're
trilogy.
sending.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess some of these ships that were like made directly for the New Republic Defense Force have been sold off to
Hmm.
local governments. Like the best ships in the galaxy are now held by
Yeah.
the
Yeah, and
Diamolans
the
and
the
stuff.
Moncals are sending like their full cruisers and stuff.
Yeah.
I really like I think that's probably the most interesting part of these books to me is like how Bothwy becomes. You see it a lot more in the next book, but basically it just becomes like this flashpoint,
Hmm.
and like dozens or hundreds of worlds are sending, in one case, one or two ships either pro or against Bothwy, because it's also like a symbolic thing, and then others like the Mon Calamari are sending, gigantic fleets,
Yeah.
and it's like a tinderbox, and we see some of that next book too, where it's like an accident could basically set off full civil war, and I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty cool idea.
And the irony of it all kind of is like the Empire probably could have gotten by not interfering at all, and it probably could have escalated more. But the
Hmm.
fact that those Star Destroyers are there, they're going to get revealed later on. This is
Hmm.
probably jumping ahead too much, but like the thing that stops them from killing each other is that they find out there are two or three Star Destroyers just sitting there the entire time that they can now shoot at instead.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And although I guess, to be fair, without that kind of faction on the Empire, Pelion quite smartly wanted to use the document as basically bartering tool,
Yeah,
to gain them kind of political power.
yeah.
So
And Dizra has sent Tiersin to modify the document. So right
mhm.
now it's probably just a list of Borsphalia's name 19 times. But
That, yeah, all the Bothan clan leaders.
yeah, so if they did manage to get that document as it is right now, not going to be super helpful for them. Uh, but because Pelion is still looking for it, he has become aware of some potential
Mhm.
meddling
The very
by
end of the book. Well,
yeah,
kind of throughout. Yeah,
yeah, like
he suspects.
he's not a big fan of Dizra at all,
No.
much like Murphy isn't. But Dizra is modifying those files. There's two copies that the Empire would have. There's the copy of the files at the Ubiquitate base at Bastion, which is the Imperial capital now. Then there's
Mhm.
also the ones at Yaga Minor, which is the last remaining major shipyard that they have. Uh, and
And we
Pelion,
learn there may also be one with George Cardass as well.
yeah. I does he actually have it though?
I don't think so. Because
Do they have
I
both two
don't I think
copies?
they end up finding a couple of copies. Don't they find one in the Ubiquitate base, and then they also find one in the Hand of Thrawn?
Yeah.
Because they
I think they
find it
come
in
with
like
three, don't
Thrawn's.
they? Because I think Cardass might
Yeah,
have one as well.
yeah, he might
Park gives the Luke and Mara the other one, and then Beliblis does.
steals it basically.
He tries
And
to steal it, but Palion comes and like interrupts the battle. Like,
yeah,
bro, I've been trying to call you for weeks now.
Yeah, one of my notes is just send someone else question mark LOL. Like,
Yeah.
so as we mentioned at the beginning of the book, basically the Empire is, I like how the book begins. The Empire is in shambles. It's like Charlie after Burio. Um they're trying all these tactics, like switching up thumbnails on videos and making making an automated kind of computers. They're basically trying to beat cloaking with AI, or they're trying to aim their cloaked ships with computer systems, and it doesn't work. So the whole time he's trying to call Bel Iblis, because he's like, Bel Iblis is kind of cool. I'd rather make peace with him as the representative. And the person he sends is intercepted by this rogue element of the Empire, serving under who they believe is Thrawn. And he kind of realizes that the guy's probably been lost, and he doesn't send anybody else. He's
Yeah,
just
well,
like,
he thinks
well,
the New Republic has captured him.
I think he's
And
like 50-50, but
and
yeah.
rather than go through any other kind of official channel, he's just like, well, if my CR90 didn't make it through, it's kind
Yeah.
of done.
Or like even just put it on the HoloNet. Like, we want to talk, like text me please. Just texting, like texting Leia, you up, question mark.
It's the Bernie meme. I'm once again asking you to respond to my messages.
Yeah. So the Leia thing is weird. Like, I'm pretty sure that this book was written like without any reference to Leia ever being chief of state, because the way she's handled, it's not like she was a chief of state and then maybe it was like an edit put in at some point. That Yeah, like she's on sabbatical basically. Because she's like referred to as High Counselor Leia. Gavrissim's always kind of referred to as Chancellor. I don't think, or Chief of State. I don't think there's really any discussion of her going back into power. I don't think like she's
Mhm.
afforded kind of the respect usually that you would expect her to be afforded.
Yeah, like Gaverson ends up getting annoyed at her and being okay with sending her and Han after Han gets accused of like shooting into the protesters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does seem more like she's just part of the uh part of like the cabinet rather than being
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
her like rather than Gaverson being kind of just holding the office for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say generally though, I was pretty, I guess, surprised at how much, because it had been a while since I've read this book, and I was definitely surprised about how much kind of non-Zon things were included in this book.
Yeah.
Corran Horn, I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, obviously in hindsight because Booster's in it, but Corran Horn is in there. Rogue Squadron generally is in there. I'm
Horn
trying to
is
think.
very moody in this book. He loses a lot of the
Mhm.
character development.
And they have a kid as well. I think this is the first time Valen is introduced, but I
Is
could
it
be
just Valen or
mistaken.
is Jizhorn in there as
Giselle,
well?
I don't think Giselle is in there. I think it's just Valen.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised, and there are lots of references. We get the Telgicon Vagabond mentioned
Yeah.
by name.
Well, we get it mentioned as something that was really fucking dumb. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you think it actually means something? Is it like that stupid ship Lando was hunting?
That waste of a book. I mean, the waste of Landa's time. I mean,
And then it just says "fuck Kevin J. Anderson" after that for some reason.
yeah, yeah. Which was yeah, that was a weird chapter. Um,
Just all of
I
Zan's inner anger coming out at once.
I do like how he does go in and fix things that he clearly doesn't like Talon Card unretiring.
Yeah.
Like, Talon Card retired like in, I don't know, I forget which book it is,
It was the
it's
Corellian
basically,
trilogy where like Mara's in charge now and she's acting like a pirate.
but I mean, even
So
other times, like it talks about her like basically kind of assuming the role, and he's kind of like working his way out, which to me always felt a bit weird because he's not very old.
no,
Like,
he's
he's like probably at this point
50.
he's probably, yeah, in his 50s, I would guess. Because he's described as being young in the Thrawn trilogy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And this is 10 years after that, as we're frequently reminded.
Like he seems like he's in a similar age group as the main protagonist, basically.
Yeah,
Like
like a
more on the
Lando.
Han side and Lando rather than Luke and Leia,
Yes.
who are a considerable bit younger. But
Hmm. So yeah, I was really glad that. I mean, I remember that happening, but I never liked the idea of him kind of just like immediately backing out and being like,
yeah,
"Nah."
he just seems like he'd get bored. Like what?
Oh, totally. Yeah. What's he gonna do? Flirt with people's wives 24/7? I don't know.
Lando or Card?
But yeah, both. Yes.
Well, speaking of wives, Tendra does not come up at all. At
No,
least
she
not in
doesn't.
here. I don't know if she gets mentioned in Vision of the Future, but
No, I was trying to think of other things like that. I was the only other one that I was waiting for reference to is Quarrel or Oral. Sorry,
mm-hmm.
Quarrel. What's his first name again?
Oral Quirg,
Yeah, Quirk, right? Because they've got
Krieg.
uh, lots of sections where they talk to other Rogue Squadron members, and they don't usually say them by name except for Corrin, which I was it's kind of interesting though because I was listening to the audiobook version of this, and the narrator was doing the same voice he would do for like the other pilots, so you could kind of like I only checked a couple of them, but you could tell that at least it was intended
Yeah.
by the narrator to be the same character, which I thought was cool.
And you have Nawara as like working for
Oh yeah,
Booster now.
Noir is in there. Yeah, yeah.
Because Nawara kind of goes through a few different
Hmm.
career paths. Because he is it his leg that he
Yeah,
loses?
his leg.
And so yeah, he ends up working for Booster and then he becomes a public defender by
Yeah,
Legacy of the Force. So
He's Luke's lawyer at some point, which
yeah.
is fun.
I mean if you
um,
were able to legally defend Booster Tarek, then
yeah, true, true. Um, what was I gonna say? But yeah,
Disra's
I guess
attempt to attack to scare off Pelion and convince him that Bel Iblis was attacking him
it's so
really see
transparent.
through. Like,
Yeah,
oh, let's give our ships a giant Corellian flag because that's a thing the New Republic Defense Force does.
yeah. Like they would have been better off just keeping it quiet and like implying somehow, other than like. So the basic idea is they want they want Pelion to think that the New Republic has rejected the peace talks, but they want to make it seem like they're trying to do it on the down low, or not rejected it. They're trying to make it seem like Pelion has been betrayed,
Yeah,
basically. So they have Corellian ships. So it's supposed to be like the New Republic is trying to do this on the down low. But like for one, if you're gonna knock them out anyway, you might as well send your big heavies to do it. Although I guess the idea is that it's just something Bel Iblis took into his own hands.
yeah,
But like that's not very Bel Iblis like. They talk in this book about how Bel Iblis is a pretty proud man, and I think I agree with that.
yeah.
He's very he is very like he's too prideful sometimes. Like that's kind of what we see in
Hmm.
the trilogy where he's like Coruscant's getting fucked by meteors and stuff, and he's just like someone's like, "Will someone competent please take over this defense?" And he's like, "Only if Mon Mothma asks."
Yeah, but like I think that kind of highlights one of the things that Dizra and Flim and Tierce are lacking is that like this understanding that not everyone else is quite as shitty as them, and that
Yeah.
just forms a blind spot in how Pellion's going to act and how Garn Bel Iblis would act and how Garn Bel Iblis and Pellion would expect each other to act.
Hmm.
That just kind of undermines a lot of what they're doing. Like,
Yep.
yeah, the aura of Thrawn and Flim does a really good job of being Thrawn,
Hmm.
is enough to kind of uh, missed a lot of the people. I don't know if that's just a Big Brother term. It might not be, but uh, missed a all the Imperial officers. And speaking of Big Brother in Star Wars, do you know who Doctor Will is? This is not
From Big
related to.
Brother, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
he's in Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, really? Who is he?
He's with. I think he's in one of the scenes the uh with the Twi'lek who owns the establishment, who I can't use the most describable part of because of
The hot
spoiler.
Twilight.
Well, I was gonna say the exploded Twi'lek, but uh,
I don't know why you wouldn't just say hot, but yeah, you continue.
yeah,
Because she
he's in
blew
one of
up
those
as well.
scenes.
Okay, cool. Oh, Max Rebo.
He's not Max Rebo, sadly.
Okay. Spoilers. We already spoiled. You notice how thank God Max wasn't there that day of the explosion.
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
Yeah, that would have been
Can you
a
imagine like
big
Max
problem.
Rebo is like walking up, getting ready to go to work, and then he sees yet another place of employment?
Although to be fair, he was on Jabba's sail barge. So
Yeah, what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
he's had enough close calls. But anyways,
he's like,
back
nope. He
to
sees a guy walking in with a canister. He's like, nope, not
yeah.
again.
I'm gonna put up the picture of Dr. Will in it if you want to take a look at that. We should get back to the book
Yeah.
before we get more angry Reddit comments about how we don't talk about the book anymore. But yeah, Flim does a good job, convinces people, good on his feet, but he's yeah, there's Dr. Will. But
Where'd you put it?
it's just on the screen in a second if you have the stream
Oh,
open.
okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah, continue.
But yeah, I guess the real test is whether Lando's going to buy it or people who've actually met Thrawn are going to buy it. And Lando buys it. The Captain Dorja buys it. So
yeah, I wonder if they ever considered like the Empire is really racist. Like if we just paint this guy's face blue, like it's probably gonna be fine.
yeah, once they've done all one of the things that was kind of sticking out to me is if they're doing this by swapping Flim's DNA in for the Thrawn DNA samples, wouldn't people notice he's not supposed to be human?
I mean, they probably just did like I think they're assuming that the guy just is like a one-on-one like a just to check for a match. But yeah, I guess that is a weak spot there.
Like if they're looking it up and they're like, "Oh, Thrawn was a ferret," suddenly that's gonna set off some alarm bells.
Well, yeah, maybe they just like took just like is this the same DNA? Yes, no. I that's kind of what I imagine it did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that is
It just
definitely
spits out the binary match rather than full genetic profile. No one's gonna think.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah,
if the reason you're
Grand
checking,
Admiral Thrawn was a white man. Like, hold on.
but like, if the reason you're checking is because you suspect foul play, like you think you're gonna look for that.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I guess people believe what they want to believe, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they definitely did want to believe it was Thrawn, and to him, taking the blood was probably, going above and beyond already, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But we are getting some instances of particularly Luke and Mara or Luke and Card getting buzzed by Luke, Mara, and Card getting buzzed by the Clawcraft, trying to get in contact or scout out the situation in the galaxy, which we're going to learn more about Thrawn's hidden faction there, and it does seem to set up a bit of a contrast with how they talk about Thrawn early on in some of this, about how Thrawn would do whatever he did for the Empire, which like it seems like that would have been the case with original Thrawn as presented, but
Yeah.
Thrawn kind of gets developed into having other reasons for what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of mentioned this later. It's like there's no certainty with this new kind of Thrawn that he would have returned to the Empire.
Yeah,
Because, and in fact, he probably wouldn't have if the galaxy, well, maybe, but if the galaxy was under control, or if they could kind of make things chill out a bit, the New Republic is certainly in a stronger spot militarily. But Thrawn probably would also rather be in a more authoritarian government based on kind of what he values,
yeah.
security and
The whole Thrawn only actually cared about stopping the Vong and other threats like that retcon. I don't think it works very well with his characterization in the Heir to the Empire stuff, or in the Thrawn trilogy stuff, especially with how okay he is with like fucking over the Nogri and all that. But if we just kind of take it as presented in the Hand of Thrawn duology, like even though the New Republic is really not doing well staying together, it's kind of too late to, or yeah, too late to, or too close to the invasion that he's kind of worried about. to
Yeah.
start a whole new galactic war and rebuild the Empire from nothing.
Yep.
It wouldn't be feasible. So he'd probably be more on board with trying to at least get everyone ready.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Although, maybe with the yeah, no, you're right. He might have tried to do something with like the Hand of Thrawn itself and like combine that with the Empire and then work with the New Republic. But yeah, we'll definitely have more kind of to talk about with that in the next book. Uh, there were definitely a few cases though where I feel like there were obvious options like ways out that weren't taken that I found a little frustrating. The one was, as I mentioned, I do feel like Pelion could have done more for diplomacy. I also think the New Republic could have probably done more to um, lessen kind of the breakdown in just civil society. So, like, the big thing is, it seems like one option that may be kind of widely accepted would be for the Bothans to basically sponsor the discovery of a new homeworld for the Kamos, the remaining
Mm-hmm.
survivors, because there are some left, including, um, oh, why am I forgetting his name?
Elagos
What's
Claw?
yeah, Elgos Akla, who I think we'll meet next book. But yeah, that to me was like a situation where like just take a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship and like have Kamos 2 sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends or Audible or something, or
Well,
more.
the problem is they wanted to take the Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship, but unfortunately they clicked one of the Discord links and got their NFTs stolen. So right now they're trying to claim they still have those NFTs, even though that's all in someone else's open sea wall or whatever
The
the fuck it's
blockchain's
called.
been lost. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're hoping that Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship still comes through, but they need to make sure that it does before they can do anything. Because finding an empty planet, that's expensive. That's something that we see going down a lot in the Swarm War. So
hmm
it's
But
it's not
okay.
easy.
However, this would have been, I think, a good opportunity for the New Republic to say, okay, shut the fuck up. We're going to give you a loan. You need to pay us this back, but this is literally the galaxy is on the edge of toppling. So, like, let's
Yeah,
get it done.
and no
Um,
cooking the books on this one.
yeah, especially where like the books have been heavily cooked already. So it's like everyone thinks that it's financially possible, which is probably making matters worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, the New Republic should have sponsored that.
At the
Been
same
like,
time, if they come out and say like, "We hear what you're saying, we would do this, except we've committed massive tax fraud. Everyone be nice to us now." That's probably not
yeah,
going to
no,
go.
you definitely don't say that. Like, you keep the Bothan financial insecurity, you know, secret. You loan the money on the down low, basically.
So we want to do more things that get Han and Leia implicated in their regular illegal activities and take down buffers with them. Like I don't know.
Yes.
This just
Yep.
this seems like it. You need transparency. The whole secret or the whole lesson from this is transparency, and we're just not going in that direction here. I can't sign off on your continued defense of tax fraud. I just can't do it anymore.
So, well, Leia's rich enough. Like, let's be honest. But
Just
one thing
take
that's
New
really
Alderaan and give it to the Kamasi instead.
yeah, exactly. Or what about Merkur? Did anyone ever go back there?
Mercure kind of seems like it sucks. So
I don't know. Talon Card like loved it.
yeah, because he wasn't going to get found there because of how it sucked.
Yeah, fair enough.
They already gave Waylon to the Nogri. Like
Which
there's
is
not.
funny, though, because the way they describe it, it's like you're putting a bunch of people outside like the royal like I don't know, like the Royal Museum in London or something. It's like all these artifacts, like decades of imperialism.
Yeah,
It's like you might find a severed skull. If it's not stolen from a civilization, you can crush it. If it belongs to the Bothans, we should probably try to get that back to them. They've got like a liaison there to like ensure that people get their ship back.
yeah. 'Cause it's not great, and
No.
people just salvage it whenever they want. Like the Nogri just want to blow it all up. They don't want anyone
Mhm.
to take that, but
Which I
they're just
respect.
leaving all these data cards in there too. Like, oh,
hmm
you can come take this.
hmm
What do we need Imperial state secrets for?
Yeah. Um, One thing that was really funny about this book is, or the audiobook is, every time that what do they call them again? Puffles or
Puffers.
what? Puffers?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gaversum.
yeah, Gaverson. Every time he talks, he like whinnies. So he's like, "Ooh." I've never, I haven't actually read this book for a while. My last two readings, including this one, haven't listened. But I don't know if there's like any sort of use of that in the writing, but it was really funny. It's just like Leia, you must be careful. Ooh.
I like Gaversum whenever I read this more than I remember liking Gaversum.
Yeah, I
Uh,
got some.
but I always just picture the hyper chicken from Futurama,
Mm.
lawyer.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Especially
But
where he's like using his wings to do shit.
what I'm sad we never got is a scene between Gaversum and Macamber Lecto from Brilliant Trilogy. I think that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, that would have been
Too bad he
that would
got burned at the stake on Corellia last time.
that's kind of just the way she goes though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
way of the road.
Way of the road. Yep. Um when remember that scene where Luke's on that planet that he just randomly like decides to go to? Um and he gets confronted by like one of the New Republic's they're basically just like observers. It just
That's
for
what they're
some reason
called. Yeah.
I just had this like vision of like a famous person being basically cornered in the bathroom to be pitched something. Because like the guy's like following Luke, he's not saying anything, and then he just like kind of pounces on him and starts talking to him. And all I could think about is like someone just coming up to somebody else in the bathroom and just bothering them.
Yeah. Like I did like that scene because it did involve a lot of that. Like, hey, don't just jump to the whole Imperial conclusion here. But
Hmm.
we are about to start getting into the weird kind of Imperial apologist thing. And chief in line for or first in line for rehabilitation is Pelion himself, who like in
Hmm.
this is portrayed as being like a reasonable person, but
Yeah.
still very Imperial, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Because like there's a lot of but do we have to deal with the fucking gross ass aliens and Pelion just being like, yes, I do agree the aliens are shit, but we're gonna
They are
lose.
objectively worse based on their race. Yeah.
Yeah, like Pelion, he starts off, or not starts off, like from here and into even the start of the NJO and his appearances there. It's like it's very clear that he's being practical, he's being reasonable in a way that like someone like Dizra isn't, but he still has a lot of those same problems that the rebellion was fighting against. Whereas like
Hmm.
the later you go on, the more it gets kind of swept under the rug that like no, Pelion actually does very strongly believe a lot of these things.
Hmm.
He's not just some dude who likes order. He's some dude who likes order and
And
is kind of
gardening.
racist.
Yeah, order and gardening. It's kind of his two big things.
Like uh his first introduction I think involves just thinking about how scary and gross Rook is.
Yeah, yeah. He's like fucking aliens, dude. Bullshit. On the
Yeah.
other hand, you do love to see the Nogri. They get so much love in these books. It's
Yeah.
like one tries to stop a suicide for no reason other than like he's a good dude. Um, yeah, I love the Nogri, and
Yeah.
then I think is it Cabarash who gets killed by the Vong later, but
Both of these are dead by mid Vong War at least.
yeah.
Because it's Kak, Maim, and Meewall by the end of the Vong War, I think.
Yeah, yeah, right. And then they're in there for a while. I think they were in there kind of
Yeah.
continuously.
I think Meanwhile, I think it's originally Kabarak originally in the Vong War, it's
Hmm.
Kabarak and Meanwhile, and then Kabarak gets replaced by Kakmame. But
Okay.
there's a whole progression of like 5 or 6 Nogri guards with increasingly easier to pronounce names, thankfully.
um. Yeah. Speaking of Nogri, this is another book where the kids are just they exist, but I mean
Yeah.
only theoretically.
I
They're off
mean,
on
Zan
Kashyyyk
introduced
or
them, so I think he just doesn't want to have to deal with Anakin or something.
yeah. He's like "Ugh, Anakin, Dark Empire kid. Get off my face. Get out of my face.
Well, Anakin got removed later, so
Yeah. Um. Okay, one thing that I thought was weird about this book was how people react to Luke. Well, and Luke, how people react to Mara being missing. Um, Luke is basically convinced to go rescue Mara, and Han and
Yeah.
Leia are at first angry that he does so. Where, like, I don't know, that's not very heroic, is it? Especially Mara has saved Luke's life earlier in the book.
Yeah.
Um, Mara has saved people's lives. Mara saved Leia on one occasion um, during the attack on the palace and the Thrawn trilogy. That to me is just like, that didn't feel right.
Yeah, he's not even like warning Card about it. Card is telling him about it and looks like, okay, I guess I'll go. Oh, by the way, I had a vision of her. She looked dead. That doesn't suck, does it? Like, come on. Especially
Yeah.
when there's already so much talk with the other characters about like whatever tension or whatever between them.
Yeah.
Or 'cause it makes it seem like they have more of a recent history and like some unresolved stuff to deal with.
Hmm.
And yeah, it just felt weird that uh that
Luke,
Luke
like, you'd
wasn't.
think Luke would be clamoring to go,
Yeah,
basically.
like I thought he would be jumping at that first
Yeah.
before even Sajan stage.
Yeah.
But and then I was like, okay, well if he thinks that's the one place that he knows he needs to go, maybe that's how he can help prevent the other stuff. I'm on board with that. But then he ends up in the conversation with Card, and Card's like, I'll be your best friend.
Like, just do it, dude. Like, don't
Yeah.
be a dick. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not gonna do it? Like, just go.
Yeah. You're you're gonna get there fastest. You're the most capable of getting her out. Unless
Hmm.
it like maybe it's something of like, oh well, I if I go, then that's gonna be the vision, the thing that makes the vision happen. But he doesn't say that, so I'm not gonna give him credit for that.
And it's like not even really a comparable situation to, like, in this. It's like everything is leading him there. Like, the issue in Cloud City is he's like going out of his way to uh to go to Cloud City. And this, it's like that seems to be where fate's leading him, and he's just like, nah, dude, I'm good.
We'll probably have some stuff to talk about with that next week with Book of Boba Fett and some
Hmm.
parallels here and there. But
Yes.
because one of the things that everyone's getting on his case about in this book, and even a bit in prior stuff, is that Luke is very gung ho with his Force use, and he kind of fucks everything he chooses to do up in this one,
Hmm.
where he goes to the Cavalry pirate base, and everyone who hears that he's doing this is like, what the fuck are you doing this for, you idiot? And
Hmm.
he has to go get rescued by Mara, and so now he's trying to cut back, which maybe that's the other reason he wants to not go get Mara, because he's afraid
Hmm.
of having to use his powers for that kind of thing. But it's yeah.
I got to admit, I was a bit more, I thought that he lost more of his powers than this. Like, I thought he struggled more. Like, in my mind before I read this, I was kind of expecting him to have like a Spider-Man 2 type of thing where like he completely loses his powers until he, like, is that Spider-Man 2? I think so.
Which Spider-Man 2? Original Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, where, where like he loses his
Yeah,
powers until he like figures out, like, he basically has to figure his shit out
yeah,
because he's having like this internal conflict. I thought he was gonna do something like that, but it's not nearly to that extent. He's just like, he's more worried than anything else.
yeah.
Is there a book where like that happens, or am
I
I
I think
misremembering?
I think there is. I don't remember what it is, and I don't know if it's actually Luke.
Yeah, maybe not. Hmm.
Is
I mean, we know
it?
we know Corrin can't get it up when it comes to telekinesis.
Was it one of the kids?
Hmm.
It's Ben.
Is it Ben? Okay.
Like Ben withdraws from the Force
Yeah.
after the Vong War.
Yeah, that's different though.
But yeah, there's something
I
else
thought there was a
I'm thinking
situation
of.
where Luke, like, it ain't working for him and he couldn't figure out why, but I can't think of it.
Other than Salamiri.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. It. Yeah, you're right, but
Yeah, there's something like that. So I was definitely mixing something up. Like, I'm trying to think if it happens later on maybe, but I don't know. I guess if it does, I guess we'll find it when we get there. Chad, if you have any recollection of what we're talking about, I'd be curious to hear if you can figure out the situation we're referring to.
yeah. But is there anything else we want to cover for this without going too far into Vision of the Future? We touched on most of the major plots and points of what's going on so far.
Oh, this was the first book that to have Munilinst in it, or the first anything to have
Right.
Munilinst in it. No reference to Munes though. I don't think
Yeah,
anyway.
I like
Um,
to retcon some of the characters mentioned into Moons.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Crystal Star,
Does he do it in
Ghostfish
Crystal Star?
does.
I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't think there's a whole lot else that I've got to say about this.
Yeah. What are we looking at for our rankings there?
It's an A for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a good read. Not as good as the trilogy, but very good. And the main trilogy characters were used great. There were some good space battles. Even just like I like that the everything feels much more kind of appropriate size wise, like a small task force, an assault frigate, and some Nebula and bees. I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not like the biggest fleet the rebels have is like a dreadnought. Good luck.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of torn thinking of whether I want to put this on the A or even S.
Oh, really? You're almost at S, are you?
I'm in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have 5 S's right now, each of us. This is going to put you up to 10 A's. I'm at 10 A's.
Mm-hmm.
Let
Hey, if you think it's an S, man.
I'm trying to think of like what else coming up would be in the running for an S. Kind of
Star
like what
by
else do we
star.
have? Like Last Command, Heir to the Empire, we both put as S.
Mm-hmm.
Plagueis, we put as S. Alphabet
The New
Squadron
Rebellion,
and Revenge of the Sith, we put
preemptively.
as S. Yeah, that's not
Lost
happening.
Stars, maybe an S for me, maybe.
S for sexy.
Yeah. Okay, they're kids for half of it. Don't be weird.
Uh, we're very top heavy on these things, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
I think A is about right for it. I'm gonna go with A, and maybe once we get to our next review episode for those,
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I
Do
want to change that around at
some
all.
shuffling. I really liked the it just Timothy Zahn just makes it feel more like Star Wars. I don't know how he does it. It's just there's something about his
Yeah,
writing that just I don't know. The writing's just great. Besides for like the things that we joke about, lips curling up into smiles, lightsabers snap hissing, stuff
everyone's
like that.
saying point.
Yes,
Like that is a trait that literally everyone gets in a Timothy Zahn book. Is
that
that
and whistling, low whistling.
yeah?
Whoo.
Like Trader's gonna be an S. That I will tell people right now. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I have not stopped thinking about that book since the last time I read it. So that's usually a good sign.
There we go. What did I give Ronin? Did I give that an S
Ronan,
or an,
we didn't give.
an
I think we
A?
both gave it an A.
Yeah.
Oh, it's marked as 0 on the sheet right now. So,
Oh, let's
but
go.
I think that's an A.
Yeah.
I think Seamus or someone else did correct us when we asked what our ranking for Ronan was, but
Okay. But yeah, New Rebellion, big time S coming up. But
well,
yeah,
whenever we get to New Rebellion, because I don't think we're going to be doing that during the. And like
no.
we tried to leave ourselves some stuff to mix in with the earlier stuff after we finished NJO, so Tatooine Ghost, uh,
Mm-hmm.
New Rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
Bounty Hunter Wars, which probably would have been nice to fit in with Book of Boba Fett if we were good at our jobs, but who gives a shit?
Yeah, whatever. Whatever.
We can do the Mandalorian armor when we get to the Mandalorian season 3 or
Mm-hmm.
season 3 part 2. But
So you fell on A or you fell on
I'm going with A for now, and then maybe
Okay.
I'll reevaluate. If any book we've covered so far is likely to get pushed up to an S for me, then I think this is one of those cusp ones.
Okay. So did you have some emails, Mark, that you wanted to read?
My name's Corey. I'm not Mark, but thank you. And it looks like
Fucking guy, I'm so sick of it.
a lot of these are uh a lot of these are Book of Boba Fett questions, but we do have a few about Specter the Past. And do we have another one of our famous
We
favorite?
do. We did,
Yes.
yes. Yep.
All right. We need to make sure that we're not trying too hard on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, So we'll have to see how that one goes. But our first email here comes from Joel, who says, "Do you guys feel Specter of the Past is where the whitewashing of the Empire begins, making it feel like the only reason the Empire was bad was because of evil dark side users ruling it, or psycho politicians like Tarkin being in charge? Also, how do you feel about the Empire and Republic eventually making peace? From an out-of-universe perspective, I have issues with it, since to me, Star Wars is about fighting dictatorships, not appeasing it. This is also where I feel Zahn's retconning of Thrawn being a bit less villainous, which on a personal level, I don't like, preferring the original Thrawn trilogy Thrawn characterization, which continues more in something like Rebels. Anyways, love the
Mhm.
podcast. Gonna miss the Bantam era. Sincerely, Joel."
I'm just the Bantam era as well. Again, we do have a few left, but yeah, sad. And these two are technically Bantam books as well, but yeah, definitely near the end. But yeah, definitely this. I was thinking because I read his email when it came in, and I was trying to think of other books that really present the Empire even mildly sympathetic, and there's not a whole lot I can think of. Like you understand what Dahl is trying to do, but like you never think she's doing it for good reasons, or like
Yeah,
you never think like there's no way you can come out of this book realizing that she's or thinking that she's a good person.
yeah,
Can't think of really any others. Like sometimes you get individuals, like the captain of the Black Asp or whatever, or the guy who killed the fake captain on the Lusankia. But other than that, I can't think of too many.
yeah. Like it definitely starts going that direction now, and I kind of already talked about it uh with the stuff about Pelion a few minutes ago, or so. I
Hmm.
definitely agree to an extent on that.
Hmm. Yep. Oh, I had a question I meant to ask you. Which planet is it in one of the X-wing books that's like described as like having flowing plains and grass and stuff? Is that Borlias? Is that supposed to be where Luke is going to get his medical treatment in this?
Uh, no, I think where he's going is farther north,
Okay.
because it's near Cauron, which is like super far northeast, almost in the corporate sector.
Hmm.
Orleans is like very core. At that point, you may as well just go to Coruscant.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But our next question comes from Christopher, who asks, "In your opinion, who are the best and worst parents within all of Star Wars? Sincerely, Christopher." Yes, for Valentine's Day, can you do a Tapcaf special episode focusing on the Star Wars Union comics?
That'd be fun. The Union ones at some point. You ever read those?
I think I have,
Yeah.
because it's pretty short, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Maybe after Specter, between Specter and Survivor's Quest. If we skip out uh, on the Jedi Prince for a little while again. I know we keep pushing back part two of that, but we've got Vision of the Future coming up on the 17th. Then the third would be Survivor's Quest. So
Hmm. Yeah, I'd be down. Um, I'm always good to throw some comics in. So
thank you, Christopher and Joel.
yep.
Do you have the emails open as well?
I do not. I'm trying to get them
Okay.
open, but my computer's not responding.
We do have a question from Lords of Arnor asking if we do Splinter the Mind's Eye for the 100th episode. We are going to be sticking. We're going to be trying to do NJO with Vector Prime starting up there. We will get to Splinter at some point. Uh,
Yeah, we're on a bit of a kind of schedule right now. Otherwise, that would have been a good idea, and I'm sure we'll get to there at some point.
again, Matthew Stover, so good stuff.
Yep.
And
Also, I wanted to point out as well that Daigo's Fish correctly said it's no Queevzor. That's um,
hmm,
Savannah's similar to Bothwick. Because I remember there's a scene where Akbar shows up and he's like, "It sucks here.
yeah,
It's way too hot." So I was kind of wondering whether that was meant to be the planet they're at in this
not
one, but I guess
a
not.
not enough Akbar water pun or water
No,
references
almost
in
none.
this.
Lots
Very
of
disappointing.
Tapcaf.
Yeah,
uses. But
it's been a while since we've had a Tapcaf appearance on Tapcaf, so it's
mhm.
good for the branding that this
Yeah,
happens, though.
absolutely.
And then finally, I think for this week, this is the final email that isn't about Boba, which we'll get to next week. So from Bob, we have first off, Specter of the Past is the book that got me into Star Wars books. I'd read the Thrawn trilogy prior to this, but this book got me to jump in head first. My question is, what are some of the best Star Wars Legends comics? I've been wanting to get into comics and just don't know where to start.
I feel like you're actually asking the wrong people.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
don't have the
I'm not a big
most.
comic reader, to be honest. I liked the Rogue Squadron comics I read, but yeah, I haven't read
Oh,
very.
sorry. I think I got Splinter the Mind's Eye mixed up with Shadows of Mindor for a second there, because I said Matthew
Oh,
Stover. Not Ellen.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was like,
my bad.
yeah, okay, but yeah, I don't know. I hear some of the canon comics are good, but no, I'm just not really a comic guy.
Yeah, like the Doctor Aphra comics, I've heard good things about. The Rogue Squadron comics, if you're into this era,
Hmm.
like into the X-wing books, then Rogue Squadron's a good one to do. If you like Knights of the Old Republic, there's a lot of KOTOR comics about like the Mandalorian Wars. There's also Tales of the Jedi, which is a very different
Yeah, I was
style.
gonna say Tales of the Jedi is pretty cool.
We both liked Crimson Empire, I think, a fair bit.
I really like the old Marvel comics. They're very different and very weird, um, but they're a lot of fun and they're very easy to read. Um, yeah, they're just like basically the way they work is you've got the because they released in the 70s and the 80s, so you've got the comics with the movies coming out kind of concurrently,
Yeah,
like or sorry, alongside the movies, and then you got like stories in between, some pretty fun ones, and then you've got a little bit after Return of the Jedi as well, which is where like the Nagai stuff comes from.
yeah,
So those are fun, and there's even if you want to get even weirder, there's the Star Wars newspaper comics, which I've got a few books of at home. Um, and those are pretty wacky as well. They're
yeah,
really fun though.
yeah. Like the farther back you go, the more there's going to be disconnects between the stories of what's going on there versus what's
Hmm.
going on now, like or what's going on in the Del Rey or Bantam eras, even.
Oh yeah,
Uh, like you have the Toph and their pirate ships in space, which we've started doing models of for Thrawn's Revenge, which is
nice.
kind of weird. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of different eras, a lot of different styles. So it really just depends on what you're into. There's probably something you'll like out there, but we are a bit less experienced in that. So
Yeah, yeah. Also, if you read the Star Wars Marvel comics, you'll be prepared for when Lumaya comes.
yeah,
So that's that's helpful.
very helpful. You always want to be prepared for when
I've
the
got a
Maya comes.
poster in my office. I don't know if you can see up there.
Hmm,
For some
nice.
reason, they had that at like Winners or something. I just think because it looked like retro Star Wars, but I thought it was awesome. So
I've recently been trying to get as many of the older comic endiums as I can in
mm,
hard copy. Tales of the Jedi is impossible to get right now.
yeah,
Like it
Tales of
does
the Jedi
not
was hard.
exist.
Thankfully, not to encourage. I'm just gonna say it. You can find them all
Yeah.
on comics where you can or on websites where you can read comics. That's all I'll say. It's pretty easy to
So you're
find them.
saying there's websites where you can read comics online?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Huh. Interesting. But I think that is going to do it for this week's Tapcaf transmissions.
Hmm.
Remember, next week, Book of Boba Fett, chapters 6 and 7.
Yep.
So probably more on 7 than on 6, but there is a lot to talk about from 6 as well.
Yep.
Uh, and other than that, get ready with your 700-page assignment, 800-page assignment. 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7.
Jeez
Vision of the
Louise.
Future.
Yep.
So 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks after
You
that, we
got
got
time.
Survivor's Quest. 2 weeks after that, we got Vector Prime. We're priming in our vectors right there.
Hmm.
Have a good night, everyone. Go to youtube.com/ECKSTOO to watch some Beerio card after this. That'll be
Hmm.
starting at, I think, 8:30.
Hmm.
We're going to